Afternoon, everybody. Everybody. This is Father Michael Halloran, a good friend of mine. He's come to give the afternoon guest Dharma talk at my invitation. Welcome, Michael. Nice to have you here. I didn't realize this, but sometime in his checkered past, he was a monk, seminarian, just up the river here. No, not at Sing Sing, just downriver. At one of the monasteries like this Benedictine house along the river in Poughkeepsie, watching the same train tracks go by. He was a Carthusian monk in Europe and America for 22 years. He actually lived in the Grand Chartreuse, the great Benedictine silent cloister house in southern France, the most central cloistered silent Catholic retreat in the world as far as I know. And he's also a priest now at the Chapel of Sacred Hearts in the east side of Manhattan. He's notably, as well as a Zen teacher, a priest in good standing in the Catholic Church, which is no small accomplishment. But the main reason I invited him here, besides that he's a real bodhisattva, is he's a Zen sensei in the lineage, Soto school lineage of Father Robert Kennedy, Bernie Glassman, and Mayuzumi Roshi. And he has a lot of depth, learning, wisdom, experience, and joy in him. So I welcome you, and thank you all. It's a great day. This is the first time we've done something like this together, but I hope not the last.
Indeed, thank you. So indeed, I am delighted to be here, and I'm very grateful to be welcomed among you, not only as a member of another school of Buddhism, the Zen tradition, but also as representative of another religion, the Christianity, although I guess I feel at home in these surroundings. Can identify some of the symbols, and etc. And we do need to come to terms, of course, and reconcile all our past, whatever the broken pieces may be. It's part of the puzzle, part of the light and life, which we're called fully to be. I thought we'd follow the program this afternoon, that we would first do a sitting, a silent meditation. I'll be doing the Zen Shikantaza, the simply sitting, simply being there. As Lama Surya said this morning, I believe, no will, no way, just be, let go, and let life, let you be life. So to get into the flow, I thought we'd do what's traditional in our Zendos every time we sit, is the chanting the 4 vows, which you have in the book in front of you on page 7. We'll ring the vows. I'll begin chanting them in hopefully a resonant voice, and you can join in. You can follow my speed, and I'll follow your depth. We'll do that 3 times, and then we'll simply flow into the meditation. As you know, the Zen particular way of the Mahayana Zen is simply to, as I say, be present, but particularly to the breath in your posture. Simply to observe the breath, and if not count the breath, observe the breath, and if not observe the breath, become the breath. Be that flow of life within you. And if you don't want to do that, you do your own thing. But we'll do that sitting for 20, 25 minutes after the chant. Great vows for all. Sentient beings are numberless. We vow to liberate them. Delusions are inexhaustible. We vow to transcend them. Dharma teachings are boundless. We vow to master them. The Buddha's enlightened way is unsurpassable. We vow to embody it. Sentient beings are numberless. We vow to liberate them. Delusions are inexhaustible. We vow to transcend each are boundless. We vow to master them. The Buddha's enlightened way is unsurpassable. We vow to embody it. Sentient beings are numberless. We vow to liberate them. Delusions are inexhaustible. We vow to transcend them. Dharma teachings are boundless. We vow to master them. The Buddha's enlightened way is unsurpassable. somewhat of an austere practice, especially for right after lunch. Zen has been called the Protestantism of Buddhism in its austerity. Vajrayana or Theravada has also been called the Catholicism or Eastern Orthodox. And so, in fact, as I was mentioning to Lama Surya earlier, in the Christian world, we've just celebrated yesterday the Feast of the Epiphany, the manifestation, Greek word, of light. A very Buddhist theme, is it not also? The light is manifest in us and as us in our world. And the theme of the three wise men coming from the East, bringing their gifts to the West, is very pertinent for our time and our century and our own lives. Not just gifts to Christianity, of course, but to the West. Today, though, we Catholics are also celebrating the feast of the holy name of Jesus. Name. That's the theme I'd like to talk about today. Name. What is in a name? Much. What is not in a name? Much more. Even as arose by any other name. So what about the phenomenon of a name, of who we say we are or who they say we are? You know? What is in a name? Well, first of all, to appreciate the enormous majesty and power that there is in a name. Christians say that the whole universe is a word spoken in one word. St. John of the Cross, the great mystic, repeats that. That word in silence, mirrored and reflected in the buzz or the hum of the Big Bang, which is still discernible. That sound, it's a name, really, that's pronounced. And in fact, each one of us, everything, everyone, is a word the universe pronounces. We are pronounced. We are named in this world. But what is our name? What is a true name, if there is indeed such a thing? And how can we find it? In the Hebrew Scriptures, in the book of Genesis, it says that Adam, the first man, and he stands for all human beings, in that first primordial paradisiac state, which means a state in which all is one, in which there's no yet distinction, good and evil, tree of good and evil, of distinction and duality, that Adam gave a name to everything. Each animal was brought, and he gave it its name. Not the name we may give it, but the true name, that hidden name, which comes from the very heart of life, which is the life of that word spoken. Same thing also in secular literature. Ursula Le Guin, if you know her Wizard of Earthsea trilogy. There again, to know that, as wizards do, as all of us are called to do, to know the true name of everything was to have power over, to capture it somehow. Really, it's to let it be free, but it's to really know it, is to be so close and intimate with it. But it's a secret. It has to be discovered, the true name. We know the power of words, the Kabbalah and Hinduism with the transcendental meditation and the mantras. They give you secret words, secret syllables which contain the mystery of life spoken, the word spoken, the true vibrant life of things. But how do we truly find the name, our name? Here's a white pebble. You can see it. In the Apocalypse, the book of Revelation, it says, I will give a white pebble to my follower with a hidden name written on it, a new name, which only he who receives it or she who receives it knows. So almost 40 years ago, when I entered the monastery and entered into that silence, entered into that search, entered into that reality, I found this outside the monastery gate. I said, there's that white pebble. And I picked it up, and I've kept it for 40 years. Not just hidden away in a drawer, out where I could see it. It's on my nightstand now, these days, to remind me of our search for our true name. Now, do I already understand it because I'm the one who received it? Well, who received it then? Who received it? Did I know my name yet? So who is the I who received it? And who is the I, if there is one, who ultimately receives it and knows it? That's the question. And it is a hidden name. But that's why we get Dharma names. Koryu, I'm the dragon of light, a name I was given. We have Lama Surya, the servant of the sun. In the scriptures, again, the Judeo-Christian scriptures, those who have special callings get special names, get new names that somehow reflect more their deeper identity. It's a step forward in the grasp, or the welcoming, the taking on of their new name, of their full name, of their true name. But it's just a step. I received the name too in the monastery, Dom Bruno. Bruno was the founder of our order, and he represented a great humanity with a great contemplative wisdom, and that was my ideal, that was my mission, and will always be in a certain sense, my name and my mission and my identity. But it's always partial. It's only one step. I mean, it's a marvelous step when we discover as we go forward closer and closer to what our new name may be, but it's always just a step. Even when we visualize, say as you do in your own Vajrayana tradition, the various bodhisattvas and gods and etc. of the aspects of yourself, of course. They're not external, of course, as you know, they're internal. And we develop and understand those true, ultimate, real aspects of ourselves and embodying them, receiving them as who we most deeply are. But you know, in the Hebrew scriptures, an angel comes, a similar being comes to give a revelation to, actually with Samson's father and mother before his birth. And he's asked, what is your name? Jacob asks the angel the same thing when he wrestles with the angel, wrestles with this element, this aspect of his identity before assuming it. What is the name? And they say, why do you ask my name? It is too wonderful for you. It's too marvelous. It can't be pronounced. It can't be conceptualized and put into human words. It has to be received and welcomed some other way. It's too marvelous for you. We can't expect our ultimate name to be anything we can pronounce or say or conceptualize. Even the name that was revealed, that the God of the Hebrew scriptures revealed as his name to Moses when Moses asked, who is sending me to do this great work, liberating my people from slavery? He says, tell them that I am sent you. I can't even reveal it, say it in Hebrew. They don't say it, the Jews don't say it today because it's too wonderful. It'll burn your lips off. But even so, it's just a name that's brought into our human language. But the most ultimate reality that could be spoken by the ultimate reality is I am. Which is what all of us are and are called fully to be and to assume, to allow that to become, to be in us. Isn't that what happened to the Buddha, which is, of course, a name which represents who he became, who he truly is, Gautama? In that first koan in the Book of Transmitting Light, one of the collections of koans in our Zen tradition, It recounts the enlightenment of the Buddha. When the morning star, like the star of Bethlehem, the morning star appeared again as a symbol for the enlightenment rising in the darkness. And what did he say? I, which is no longer the I that he was, just as it wasn't the I who picked up the stone, I and the great earth and all sentient beings have achieved the way, have been enlightened. So somehow, that I am is everything, includes everything. The Buddha is now, as Buddha, everything which cannot be named, but can be lived. It is life. It is reality. Totally and utterly transforming. So here, for example, when we use a holy name like the name of Jesus or the name, some mantra or or Amida, Namu Amida Butsu in the Pure Land Zen tradition, the Pure Land Mahayana tradition, it's often used as an argument about other power or self-power. Tariki and Jiriki in Japanese. And like all dualities, it's a delusion. It's a false problem. It all disappears. What is other and what is you in this ultimate perspective? What is other? It is you. The Bodhisattva is you. The Christ is you. The one reality. It's not your ego self, but your ego self isn't who you are anyway. So it's not other. So here, to open ourselves up to the full perspective of who we are. There are a couple of lovely koans that illustrate this. I'd like to mention one or two. In the 7th koan of the collection called The Blue Cliff Record, the student goes to the master, Hogen, and says, "What is Buddha?" That's always the question. And the answer is, he gives his, "You are Eko," is one translation of the name. He's saying his name, "You are Eko." But of course, he's also saying, "You are Eko. You are. You are." And if you truly are, you know who the Buddha is and what the Buddha is. And just incidentally, in English, some transliterations have echo, which is a coincidence, but it's a meaningful coincidence, isn't it? You are an echo. You are the sound pronounced. You are the word spoken. You are it. So don't go looking anywhere else. In the poem that accompanies the koan, the original poem, it says, "Ascending the falls, the waterfalls, the carp turn into dragons." And that's one of the legends, Zen legends. The carp in the sea, like the salmon swimming upstream, they reach the heights of the flow of life, and they turn into dragons. A great symbol of enlightenment. That's what it feels like to have that ultimate transformation, never ultimate, but that literally mind-blowing, heart-blowing transformation, in which your identity changes, your name changes, you're not who you thought, especially not who you thought you were. You are a little carp and you're transformed into a dragon. St. Teresa of Jesus, one of the great mystics of the 16th century in the Catholic tradition, uses the image of the transformation of the caterpillar into a butterfly. Who would ever have thought, least of all the caterpillar herself, that the caterpillar could become a butterfly, could take flight, could become so light, so free, so full of life, so transient, but how precious and how majestic. That's the transformation that takes place. The poem ends by saying, but fools still fish around in the, in the pond on the bottom of the rapids. Don't look there. Look for where the transformation is. And what's let go, what's transformed, of course, is the ego. The narrow self that's constructed primarily, if you have any experience of yourself, primarily by our fears and our traumas and our bitterness and our grudges and everything that narrows us down and puts us into the cocoon of the slavery that's not going to actually resurrect to anything, that enslaves us. So how that transformation takes place is when we let go, when we're allowed to let go of all of this. Letting go allows it to happen, but also the coming of the life flow, that energy that freely begins to flow, that's also what transforms and liberates us. And then we can simply be. Be who being who we truly are, without the limitations. And yet one final koan to give a little final brushstroke to the picture here. It's the 68th one in the same collection of the Blue Cliff record. I'm going to just change the names a little bit because it's a little confusing. In Japanese and Chinese, the masters had two names, their personal name and the name of where they're from. So they use them interchangeably. It's a little confusing. So I'll just stick with the one name for the purpose of the talk. Anyway, there are two masters coming together. It's great when you have a Dharma duel, two masters coming together. And both, in fact, from the same lineage. Hayakujo, who is a great Zen master in China, his grandson and his great-grandson, Kyozan and Sansho, meet together here. And of course, there's always, well, as in everything in life, including who you are, there's always more than meets the eye, more than's on the page. And so the innocuous question that Shoshan asks Kyozan is, what's your name? Who are you? You can just see the fangs underneath, But of course, since they're both masters, it's not going to fall for that. So Kyozan says, I'm Shoshan. The other guy, he says he's he. Which of course is brilliant. He is he. You're me and I'm you and we're all one. Truly, if we experience that one life force that connects, that makes one reality, one Christ, one Buddha, one universe. So it's what, as the poem goes on to say, is called grasping. You're pulling back from the external to the ultimate truth. So he says, okay, well, my name is your name, and there's no difference. He says, well, that's my name. Well, then he's letting go again. He's saying, well, that's my name, my phenomenal name. My phenomenal name? No, my name in ordinary life. He gives permission to go back to ordinary life, ordinary reality, which is never ordinary. Can seem it, but not when you truly live it. And so then Shoshan says, well, I'm Shoshan. He relents and lets go a little bit too and takes his name back. And then what happens? They both laugh. It's the Buddha laugh. They laugh and laugh and laugh. What a wonderful dance. What a wonderful joy, as the poem goes on to say. They're both riding the tiger. How marvelous, the poem says. Riding the tiger because they've got the grip on reality, which is that pulling them along at a wonderful pace, and they're able to go back and forth, absolute relative, and there's just no more fighting, no more confusion, just the joy of the dance of the universe going back and forth between absolute and relative, fully unified here. And they laugh. That great hearty Buddha laugh, the laugh of some of the great Yamada Roshi, for example, whose enlightenment is recounted in The Three Pillars of Zen by Kapleau. He just laughed and laughed and laughed. His wife and child came up and said, "What's the matter with you?" "Nothing." Nothing. How wonderful. Nothing's the matter anymore. And it says, the poem continues, as the laughter died down and trailed away, they left no traces. Well, that is so beautiful. They were just so one with life, so one with their reality, so one with who they really were, that they left no traces. They left no traces of bitterness or clinging or doubt or fear. It was just there. The poem concludes, what an infinite pathos to think of them. What a curious conclusion. Infinite pathos to think of them, because how moving is it? And yet how moving to think also of all the sentient beings that are still caught in the fear and in the narrowness and the confusion. Being so much less than they are already, but don't know. So let us become who we already are. Become who we are, as St. Augustine said about becoming Christ. It's the same for all of us, whatever names we give it. It's become who we are. Make that our New Year's resolution or the goal of our practice. No, there's no goal. It's just to be there, just to discover it. Let it discover you. So if someone asks, what's your name? Well, just take flight like the butterfly. In the whisper of its wing on the wind, that will be the answer. Well, I'm very happy to take any questions or comments that people might have.
So who are you?
It's indeed,
I'm the butterfly, yes.
it's indeed hard to walk around right now. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much, and thank you to Lama Surya for bringing you here. Okay. It's amazing to me that the focus of your Dharma talk was what's in the name, because that was going to be my first question to you. And I still feel like I could still ask you that question. Actually, even though you did a great job, it's just that I come from an interfaith background, and the idea so far has been, because I'm part of a team of interfaith ministers, and we offer monthly sacred services to people. And even though my mom is Catholic as a background, my dad is Jewish, they gave me no religious education, so I could be free to choose as an adult. And I feel very free, and I also feel a bit ignorant. So being in a team can be challenging. It's also very wonderful to stretch, because there are a couple of people who are from a more Christian background than I am. Anyway, so the question of how to address the invocation and in the name and things like that sometimes comes up. It's very interesting. So I don't know how to ask you my question, except that I'm still a little confused as far as how do I adapt to bring more and more people in that interfaith, multi-faith kind of understanding when we do the invocation, like in the name of the Lord, in the name of whatever. I'm not sure yet how to address that. That's number one. Also, I study A Course in Miracles, which I find is a great bridge across faiths. And it's interesting, I heard you when you said Christ is you, at one point, and another point, you said Jesus when you were referring to the sacred name, the holy name. And in the Course in Miracles, I found it very interesting that they understand Jesus as the historic man who embodied the Christ consciousness, just like there's Buddha consciousness and then there's the historic Gautama.
Yes.
So I would like to find out if you agree with that understanding of Jesus versus Christ, if that makes sense to you, just to keep helping me further with what I'm trying to do. Thanks.
Thank you. And if you're not quite sure how to proceed, in your ministry, wonderful. Thank you. I'm glad you don't. I mean, it wouldn't be a good sign if we thought we had all the answers at this point. To have the courage, of the joy of the journey, not to be comfortable with not knowing, with being uncertain, because these are realities, as you know, which cannot be put into easy categories. So that's fine, just to be there, to begin with. But I do think it's very important in our time, in the name of dialogue and in the name of our own growth, whatever tradition or traditions we're in, to be able to enter into, other traditions in as sympathetic and welcoming a way as possible, to understand their riches from within. And that in itself will always give us a better light on how to proceed, in answering the kind of question you had. If we have an interior, an inner resonance with them ourselves. So we should be able to, I know it's possible to be able to integrate, from within various traditions and use them. It is tricky in a single service, to try and bring in several, and use a language that's going to be for each. I'm not so sure I could or would do that, and I'm not sure how I would do it if I had to. I always find, precisely because we are trying to respect and understand each one from the interior, to be able to kind of focus on one in a particular service. For everyone's benefit, and say, enter into this language, this universe, this symbol system, this experience, and you can do it with others too. But to respect the integrity of each one, otherwise there always is the danger of syncretism, which I think is, where there's just an indiscriminate and undiscerning kind of mixture of things, and that actually is not a healthy way to proceed. So. Once you really do begin to try and understand from within and live from within, then perhaps know how better to proceed. As to the second question about the Course in Miracles, yes, I was emailing a friend of Lama Surya's recently, who has a very similar situation with interfaith and Buddhism and Christianity. And I pointed out that there is a Buddhist, a Thich Nhat Hanh type of understanding of Christ, as you just said. Jesus represented Christ consciousness, and Gautama represented Buddha consciousness, and they're pretty much equivalent. It's a conceptual question. I, as a Christian, would simply I would prefer to keep the Christian language, which says, Jesus, this man, in his life and death and what we call resurrection, was the face of ultimate reality, what he called the Father. More so than anyone, including Gautama, would ever claim. But it's still a connection to ultimate reality. That's the important thing in each case. They may not be equivalent, but there is a connection to ultimate reality in each case, so you can follow the path and reach that. And that's what's important. Not how you describe it or debate what the fine points of the conceptualization is, because you'll all get into trouble. I'll certainly get into trouble. But to live it, to know from within what he's, and then you don't have to answer, well, what exactly is the comparison or what's the relative merit, or is it exactly the same reality? It can't be said. Can't be said. And I think in dialogues throughout the world, we've gotten caught up, entangled hopelessly in this kind of discussion. I think if there is a way forward here, if there's any way forward, it's going to be on the level of religious experience. So no, I would not be prepared to say those two are simply equivalent. But they both do offer a connection to ultimate reality, and however it happens, however it's structured or not, it's a wonderful mystery and a wonderful tradition in each case. So I hope that helps a little bit.
Thank you. That was wonderful.
I appreciate it.
I believe when the Creator is asked, who is he?
Mm-hmm.
He says, I am what I will be.
That's one translation, yes. Mm-hmm.
And that, as I think about what you are saying, and my own questions in the Sangha I sit with, in the beginning they introduce each other, and I'm the only person who never comes up with the same name, which upsets many people. A good friend knows me as AKA.
Very good, very good.
But the I am who I will be seems to set up a paradox in that as I meditate on all there is now, past is whatever and future is whatever, and how does that fit into your thinking of this assumption of a future, which the rest of that, I believe, says.
I might almost be able to give you a linguistic answer to that question. As I said, that's one translation of the phrase in Hebrew. The fact is that in Hebrew, in classical Hebrew, there's no distinction between the future and the present. That's why you can translate it either way, which is a lesson in itself. I mean, you can say everything's the future, but it's better to say that everything's the present. There is only the present. And all the potential of what we call the future, all the reality of it is right here now. And that's the way to live it. So I think they were onto something. It would certainly simplify our language and our minds, if we had something as simple as that. So I think that's the way I would approach that question.
One question I have is, how do you hold two world religions together, right? I mean, in your life. I mean, an awful lot of Christians see it, but you can't have both. You have to be one or the other.
Well, first of all, I think the Christians who say that don't know what they're talking about. I mean, that they don't literally. I mean, they haven't experienced the other, so I don't think there are many or any who have actually experienced it who would say that it's not possible, but maybe there are. But I approach it this way. My great friend, Paul Knitter, who's a theologian, a very prominent international theologian of interreligious dialogue for many years, wonderful books. His last book was called, which I recommend to everyone, Without Buddha, I Could Not Be a Christian, especially for Christians. But to understand all the traditions of the world, to see how, it's his personal story of how he's integrated them, and he calls it double belonging to both. But in a course I helped him with at Union Theological last year, he elaborated what he means by that. He says that anyone can say there's a double belonging in my life if you are substantially nourished by another tradition. Doesn't mean equally, and it doesn't mean you're just exactly one or the other. Maybe you are. But the other thing is that he said is generally there's a root or a basic identity which the other one is, subordinate in your life, in your own integration. That's the way I experience it too. I am a Christian, and I embrace that reality and its tradition. And I lived it for 22 years in a silent contemplative order, as well as now living it as a priest. And I find tremendous fulfillment and identity and nourishment in it every day for myself and for those I serve. But there's no question that I needed to, as Paul Knitter would say too, I needed to find the supplement, another way in the Dharma, which is a tremendous and incredible, wonderful wealth of richness in itself, which I'm proud and privileged to be able to present on its own terms and to be a teacher in that tradition. But which also helps me, and this is something Paul develops also, helps me to deepen and understand better some of the elements in my own original tradition. That's the magnificent part of the kind of dialogue. That I understand better now who Christ is, what the church is, what the resurrection means, what sacramentalities are, all the same, and what prayer is, what all these things are. I'm given a rich new perspective on, which I discover is fully faithful to the original intuition of my original tradition, but which has somehow been clouded over or undeveloped because you can't develop everything. In the West, we've basically used Greek philosophy to explicate the Christian mystery. Well, there are lots of other ways. What about the Dharma? That's where it's been especially helpful for me. So that's one way you can do it. That's the way I've done it. That's the way Paul's done it. And I grow each day into seeing how compatible they are and how they're compatible and that they're compatible. I grow, and I don't need to know exactly how it all fits together. I was saying to you how they all fit together right now. Thank God I don't know, because it's just too wonderful for that. If I knew, how boring would it be?
That's very helpful. I recently read Knitter's book.
Yes.
Without Buddha, I couldn't be a Christian. Mm-hmm. But my understanding of how he came down was, that his wife is Buddhist.
Yes.
That he is Christian.
Yes.
But that through dialogue with the Buddhists, with Dharma, he came to understand and can be a Christian. But not that he holds both. I didn't get that he holds both traditions from the book. But
well, in that way, he does.
What's that?
That you just described. He's substantially nourished in his own Christianity, yes, by the Buddhist tradition. Yeah.
Thank you.
So go on your own journey, please. And by the way, I just wanted to add that St. Augustine also says that you are Christ, that we are one body of Christ. And he even has a wonderful phrase quoted by a Christian monk once. In the end, there will just be one Christ loving himself, which is an incredible idea. But that's perfectly Orthodox Christianity. Just how it all works, that's another thing, but it's right there.
Are there situations in which you would use prayer and other situations in which you would use meditation?
Yes.
And maybe you could kind of go a little bit more into that.
I'm glad you asked that, because that kind of fits in with the last koan that I mentioned. It's part of the genius of Mahayana Zen tradition to kind of have a continual playful interplay of the absolute and relative, and be perfectly comfortable, not just in a monastery, but out in the marketplace, with your arms extended in compassion. It's particularly, not exclusively, particularly brought forward in the Zen tradition. So I think, and I often tell people this who are a little anxious about this, part of the joy of being human, being real, is that you can function on different levels of consciousness according to what the situation requires, what the spontaneity of the moment demands. So there are times when I want to be sitting zazen, the other times when I'm conducting Mass and liturgy and using words and formulas and symbols and preaching. Both of those are wonderfully rich and nourishing experiences, each in its own place in its own time. I don't have to exist on one level. I can't exist on simply one level of consciousness all the time. And ultimate enlightenment, according to Zen, is to be able to just be, in all dimensions and react according to what the situation requires. So yes, to be really, really fluidly adaptable and comfortable and flowing on those different levels, I think, is a wonderful gift and a wonderful goal.
So what place do you see for prayer in Buddhism?
I don't know. That's more a question for you, I think, because I'm not.
I know people ask me that. They always do, which is very comfortable for me. But now I'm asking you because you are nourished by, you know, another branch of the tree.
Well, it wouldn't be in such as understood, you know, in Zen. It wouldn't be something you would address another as you would in the Pure Land School or something like that. But I'm happy. I believe I understand that in the Tibetan tradition, you actually do invoke these powers and these realities, which, you know, in the end you find you're one with. But I think, but on this level too, and I also said this to Lama Surya's friend by email, there's really a danger of ego inflation, to use Jung's term, if you go too quickly into saying, well, I'm the Buddha, I'm Jesus. You know where you find people like that? In Bellevue. Because, you know, we haven't done the huge amount of work that it takes to really peel away those layers and be able to say that authentically. Who is saying it? Is it the ego saying that to hide and to glorify itself, or is it the reality, the ultimate reality speaking? So until the small self becomes the big self, again to use Jung's terminology, another reason to be extremely humble, as you always must be in your ego. You're just a channel, you're just a reed through which the energy flows. You don't control it, you didn't earn it, it's all just a gift, it's all just a dance. So keep that, in a sense, and I'm happy to be able to do this very much in Christianity all the time, keep the sense of complete openness and surrender to a reality bigger than me and my empirical consciousness is really, really important. So whenever that can happen, you know.
I'm a disgruntled Catholic, so
I figured there are a number of them here. Maybe I'm wrong.
So I don't want to project my anger, which is immense.
Immense.
She's from New Jersey.
And I'm from New Jersey.
Right.
Newark.
That I don't hold
I was
against
born
you.
in Newark. But how do you resolve being a member of a society where women can't be spiritual teachers? Mm-hmm. That to me, I can see being a Christian and a Buddhist, but the Catholic thing.
Yeah, and there are many who feel that way, and I respect the feeling. It's true that, you know, women can be spiritual teachers in the sense of spiritual directors, really guiding, which is more important than anything else, I think, really, to be able to guide people on their individual spiritual journey. They can be their full spiritual advisor on that. There are many of those sisters and lay women as well who do a marvelous job with that. Some of them are my own students. For me, I have a place in the institution, and no institution is perfect by any means, and whatever its faults, I know that it gives me, at least, a place where I can speak from and where I can hope to refocus everyone's, especially the hierarchies, refocus everyone's attention on what is the beautiful essential mystery of our tradition. You know, no matter how it's been practiced or what the rules are or what the limitations are, to be able to say, meeting Jesus and discovering our connection with one another and with ultimate reality is so marvelous, and it really is still here, despite the barnacles. That's how I justify it for myself. Not to mention that I continually experience it as my call, and you don't resist a call. So I've always experienced it that way. So I do understand and sympathize, you know, with those who are in less advantageous positions, and I'm not even sure exactly how things need to change or when they will. But there are certainly areas in which the official church needs to grow and change. I think that we can say that pretty with some degree of surety. But that's how I resolve it for myself, and I respect those who are where they are, you know, in their own. I would just always say, it's kind of like the baby in the bathwater thing. It sounds trite, but what is it really all about? Who is Jesus? And is there still possible contact? Can we make contact with him, despite sometimes the way it's mediated to us? So I don't really have a full response for you there, but.
Well, it's not like Buddhism isn't patriarchal, at
well,
all.
That's true. That's right.
So, I mean,
That's
there's
right.
that aspect, but
That's right.
I don't know. It's like, to me, the difference, there's like de facto and de jure, and I feel like de jure in Catholicism is, women are not granted
well,
access.
that's the way it's presented today. You're right. So it's, but there is the problem of patriarchy, which I think is built into our animal male psyches.
So as your bodhisattva vow, I'm hoping that you will give them hell from the inside.
Well.
I don't even remember what I was going to say now.
It has to be the last question, by the way. Not because I'm running away, but I do have to hurry back. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. I was sort of raised in the same way in that my parents really, we celebrated Christmas, but we never went to church or anything,
Yes.
and so they let me choose. And both my parents meditated when they were my age, and my dad's sort of into meditation and yoga, and my mom is too, sort of, But just the very last thing you just said is exactly how I feel as well. I mean, you mentioned, look past some of the flaws and just connect with, with Christ, and that's, for me, it's hard to just like pluck a name out of thin air and do that. And I've always, wished for, something at least a little more experiential, or something where when I have been in church, and granted, I haven't been a lot, so, maybe I should do a little research before I...
Find a good church first.
Yeah, find a good church, right. That's basically my question. I mean, what...
Well, you can do a little sniffing around and see what you can find. But on a more general level, the reason I'm leaving now is to go back and to lead my Monday night prayer group, which is not my Zendo, which is Thursday, but centering prayer on Monday, which is a contemplative practice that's been revived in the last 30, 40 years by Thomas Keating, a Cistercian monk, and others in his community, where you just are present to the presence of God, we would say, within us, in silence, and open up to that mystery of life and that what it's really all about. So I'm doing that precisely within my Catholic tradition, as well as pursuing that. And that's something you might look into. There are groups all over the United States, contemplativeoutreach.org it's called. Right, so I'd recommend that to you if you're interested.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Wonderful. Thank you very much. Very inspiring.